Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manic, Pixie Dream podcast. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and for this episode, we have Kevin Nahai, host of the YouTube series The Other Side, where he goes over topics surrounding mental health, relationships. We talk about eating disorders and what his experience was like and what mine was like. You know, and he's a guy and I'm a girl, so, you know, it's going to be different. Little body image with models and everyday people, going over healthy bodies versus so not too skinny and not too obese. Why it's a bad idea to block, ignore, hate people with different views. That's a pretty interesting discussion. I recall. Okay, well, that is this intro, and I hope you guys stick around for the episode and enjoy what fruits of wisdom it has to offer you. Have a nice day. Bye. Hello, and welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream podcast. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and today with me we have Kevin Nahai.
Hello.
Is a what would you describe yourself? You're a YouTuber, but
aspiring YouTuber. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're on YouTube and
yes,
you're
YouTubing.
I'm on YouTube. So
yeah, exactly.
There you go. You're YouTubers.
I guess so.
You are a YouTuber. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you.
You're YouTubers.
Yeah. I'm trying to get the YouTube thing rolling, trying to get it off the ground.
Kevin, what are you doing on YouTube these days?
So I have a YouTube channel called The Other Side.
Yes.
Which I consider to be kind of a conscious counseling, personal development platform where I discuss a lot of my personal stories, things that I've been through, as well as I like to go over a lot of topics like how to navigate the daily stresses of life that we are never taught about in schools. So that includes things like breakups and relationships and anxiety, and all kinds of things that we all have to deal with on a daily basis that, we're taught about like ancient history in the 10th grade, but we're never taught about how to deal with a really rough breakup or how to deal with family dysfunction or how to deal with anxiety and depression and things like that. So from my own personal experience, I sort of try to, get the word out as much as I can.
Mm. I mean, I guess in school and that sort of thing, you can really learn a lot from some books and stuff from the reading list that they make you read, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by this question that why is it that if you want to learn about anything related to yourself, any kind of personal development, self-management, self-leadership, anything like that, you have to go find a mentor, hopefully not someone who's a snake oil salesman or somebody who's full of shit. And of your own volition, you have to go, basically figure it out. Like we go through all of these years of school and nobody ever teaches us how to deal with actual life. Nobody ever tests and talks about our emotional fitness. We don't learn anything about psychology. And then even then, if you're like a psych major in college, you're not learning anything about yourself. You're not learning how to deal with the emotional issues that we all have. You're just learning kind of how to treat other people. And that's in a very niche major, So I aspire eventually to have something called Real Life University, which is, my kind of vision for this thing will be a semester-long course, and every session or every couple of sessions will be on a different unit of things that we all have to deal with in life. And that's everything from financial literacy, like learning actually how to pay your taxes.
That was one thing I always wondered why they didn't teach that in school. Because I remember the first time doing my taxes and thinking this is they have health class and they have social studies classes. This seems like a pretty complicated thing. You'd think that they'd offer some kind of instruction on how to go about
there's none of
financial
that.
planning.
Exactly.
And stuff,
and it's not just how to do your taxes. It's how to budget, how to have a mindset of abundance, how to save money, what to do once you've saved money, everything from that to bigger things like how do you discover your purpose in life?
Yeah, for sure.
You're 18 years old and you're packaged and sent off into college expecting to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And then we're fed this message that what you do defines who you are. And that's something that I really take issue with. Like, if you apply to undergrad as let's say, an engineer, or you apply as a pre-med or a pre-law or whatever, then immediately there's this label on you that you are an engineer, you are a doctor, you are a lawyer, you are a writer, you are a journalist. And I really think that that's the reason that people in undergrad flame out so quickly and end up changing majors 3 or 4 times or drop out of school altogether, because the intimidation factor of knowing what you're supposed to do and who you quote unquote are when you're 18. When I was 18, I didn't know my head from my ass, you know? Yeah. And then of course, like I got to college and I was so intimidated and so scared and so threatened and so struck by, you know, this new environment and like all of the pressure of I have to figure out everything right now, that it resulted in a really bad emotional issues for me.
So that was when you started practicing an eating disorder?
Practicing an eating disorder?
Yeah, when you were 18 and
19.
19 in college.
Do they call it practicing an eating disorder?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh.
I mean, because it's like you had to put it, I mean, because it's kind of like alcoholism. Like, I mean, you're always an alcoholic. Like, you always kind of struggle with things and stuff, but you don't have to put it into practice and stuff. So it's like, I mean, it is a practice. It is like, I mean, when you're practicing, you know, an eating disorder, you have to go get the food that you're going to binge on. You have to bring it back. You have to have a plan and stuff.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I had bulimia, so I think yours was you had anorexia.
I had binge eating disorder and anorexia.
Yeah. So you were bulimic non-purge type.
I didn't throw up.
Oh yeah. So like, but like you would binge and then fast.
Starve.
Yeah. So that's the form of bulimia.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was bulimic, and my dad, I was living with my dad, and so he couldn't like control me or stop me, so he would go to Costco and get like those rolls, like those white bread rolls and butter. Mm-hmm. And that be what I would binge on. Okay. And I would just binge on these rolls and butter. And that was kind of how I practiced it. I would have like my bag of rolls and butter, and I would just eating until
you were so sick.
Yeah,
and then did you also purge?
Yeah. Okay. And
nobody knew?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I was pretty secretive about it. My family worked a lot and stuff, so I had a lot of time alone. So I guess like and then I would just skip dinner. And so so yeah, it took a long time for everyone to find out. And so I remember being at a family friend's house, and I was with my dad, and I was really thin at the time, and I exercised and I worked out and stuff, and so everyone was commenting on my how I looked, and so my dad said, well, she has so much discipline, and that I wasn't eating dinner, and I refused to eat dinner. And I just said I was skipping dinner, but I had like earlier that day, like I had already binged and purged, and so it was just like, yeah, it was a secret. And secrets can be really empowering in a very odd way. They can make you feel like you have control over your life, I guess, on the things that you're keeping a secret and stuff. It makes you feel like you have more control.
Yeah. I think we typically associate empowering as a good thing because we think empowering and liberating. But I think in the sense that, you know, that's the whole thing with eating disorders is your life feels out of control, and you hate yourself, and you're super judgmental of yourself for many, many reasons. And so controlling what you eat or what you don't eat for that matter is your way of having a semblance of control over all of the elements of your life that seem so chaotic and so out of whack.
Yeah.
That was definitely the thing with my eating disorder. I mean, my eating disorder stemmed from several different issues and, you know, came from several different places. But my life at the time felt so out of control that, you know, the only way that I felt like I had any control over any aspect of my life, that I had some semblance of like any power over myself and my life was to control what I was eating.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never purged, but I would binge like a motherfucker, and then I wouldn't eat for like 2 or 3 days. Yeah. And, you know, I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
it's intense. Like I'm honestly, like when I think back, I'm like, you know, when I hear about other people's experiences, like how do you keep it going for so long? Like, I mean, that's crazy. Like it's crazy that I kept it going for so long.
I'll tell you how you keep it going for so long. The author George Orwell has an amazing quote, and he says, if you really want to keep a secret, you must also keep it from yourself. And essentially what that means is that you have the way that we're able to keep these things going for so long is that we lie to ourselves about them. Like we're keeping a secret from everybody else, but we're also pretending to ourselves that it's not an issue. We're also staying in this state of constant denial, of constant bullshitting ourselves. And, the proof is in the pudding. Like everybody else around knows that something is up. And on a subconscious level, we even know that something is really wrong.
Sure.
But we hide it for so long, and we hide it from ourselves. We find every excuse and every way to show ourselves that, we're just fine.
So when did you start practicing? Like what was what led up to it in the beginning?
So I have kind of a different situation from most people with body dysmorphia that I've spoken to. I mean, I definitely had a history of body dysmorphia issues. I was bullied when I was a kid for being chubby.
Yeah.
It's weird. I was never like fat. I was always semi-athletic. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I had a similar experience. I developed early, and that was and I wasn't ever like well, I was kind of, I guess, like fat or like overweight for like a period, but then I like started exercising and stuff, and it's sort of like, but I was still like tall for my age, and I was still like bigger for my age. Right. And so I think because of that, I got sort of made fun of, or because I did look different for a minute. And so like for a minute, I was the tallest kid in class. And for a minute, I was the biggest kid in class. And for a minute, I was the heaviest kid in class, but only because I was the same height and weight that I am now. Right. And so it's...
Even though you're like 15.
Or 11. Oh. And so, I mean, or... Yeah, I developed. I developed early, and I think that was
kids at that age are fucking mean.
Yeah, yeah, and so
yeah. So I had a history of that, and that's why I say in my eating disorder video on my YouTube that I've realized now after years of therapy that it was kind of inevitable that I would have an eating disorder at some point or another. Yeah. But what really spurred it for me was getting super sick.
Yeah. So, you had Crohn's disease.
Yeah, I have Crohn's and colitis.
I always get diagnosed with that on the internet. Always.
It's on really, WebMD?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I have a stomach ache. You have Crohn's disease.
I know. Don't listen to that.
No, not again.
Yeah. And I hope that those diagnoses are wrong, because I'll tell you that it's no walk in the park.
Honestly, I feel like MedMD is like whatever that site is like horrible for people with hypochondria. Like it's just...
Of course it is. Worst. Yeah. It's like people think that they're dying every time they have a cough.
I know.
I
know.
So I got super sick. I got diagnosed my freshman year of college with Crohn's and colitis. And, at first it didn't start as an eating disorder. At first it started as a physical disorder where I literally couldn't eat.
Yeah.
So every time I would eat anything, I would just throw it up. Or I would have extreme pain in my stomach, and then I would have really bad symptoms when I was using the restroom. Not to be too indelicate, but I basically couldn't keep anything down, and I had internal bleeding, and I just, like, for a year, the only foods that I could digest were like rice and bananas, and well under 1,000 calories every day. Because anything more than that, anything more than like 3 bananas a day, like a couple of cups of rice, I just would be in horrible pain. And this went on for like a year before my stomach sort of started to heal and I started being able to put on a little bit more weight. But what happened in that first year that I was so sick was that every time I would eat, I would be in pain. So in my mind, I started to think that if I eat less, I can avoid pain. I was associating eating with pain. If you eat, you're going to be in pain. And this was coupled with a lot of shock and trauma at the fact that I was now a college freshman. I had left my family. I had left my high school friends. Everyone moved away all over the country. I wasn't making friends because I was so sick. I wasn't sleeping with or meeting girls because I was so sick. Yeah. All of my classes, all I did all day long was study, because I came from this like super hardcore college prep school in West LA, and I kind of had it beaten down into my brain that, like, if you don't get straight A's your first semester of college, you're going to be a failure. So, now I'm like being hospitalized all the time. I don't have friends. I tried to pledge a fraternity. I got kicked out of it for being a terrible pledge.
Why were you a terrible pledge?
Just because I refused to do any of the hazing.
Wait. Come on. Tell me. I want to. Let's get into this. Okay.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
But just to finish the stories,
okay.
and then we'll come back to that.
All right.
Basically, I was just going through so many things, and then, that was also coupled with the fact that I was so sick and I couldn't eat, and I was scared. I now had this disease that I was diagnosed with, and it just turned into a, emotionally super traumatic and psychologically fucked up thing. And then before I knew it, I was binging, and I wasn't purging.
Yeah.
But I would binge, for hours and hours, and then I wouldn't eat for like 3 days, and then I would exercise obsessively like a motherfucker. And by the end of the first year, I lost 60 pounds. I was 112 pounds, and I'm 5'8", almost 5'9". So for me to be like 110, 112 pounds, I was just Skeletor.
Right. Yeah.
And then that eating disorder continued for like a couple of years, probably, before I finally really started to get help.
That's good.
Yeah.
Was it like an intervention kind of thing, or was it just like, I have a problem, I need to seek somebody out?
People were intervening all the time.
Yeah.
My family tried to intervene, my friends, teachers, mentors, uncles, aunts, everyone was super concerned about me.
Yeah.
And I kind of just, like I said, I just denied it, and I refused to acknowledge it.
Because I guess you just get into this place where it's like you can't imagine your life without it. Like, how do I make my life stable without this outlet?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what it was for me, for why it took so long for me to be able to fully move on from it.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, that's your only sense of control.
Do you ever relapse or lapse?
No.
Really?
Not anymore.
When was your last relapse?
It was when I was in treatment. I didn't go to like an inpatient.
Okay.
I was treated by a nutrition therapist named Elise Resch. She works in Beverly Hills, and she works specifically with people who have eating disorders.
Yeah.
So this was my sophomore year of college. So I was 21, about to be, so I think the last time I relapsed was probably 23. No. Probably 22.
Because relapsing with eating disorders and with like any kind of addiction is so common. Like most people who are in recovery or people who try to recover and try to overcome their issues always relapse and stuff. And
it's eating disorders are a weird thing. Body dysmorphia is a weird thing because you can avoid an episode where like you binge or you purge or like you can avoid, as you say, practicing. But people with body dysmorphia, it's very, very difficult to get to a place where you're finally fully comfortable with your body and like you finally love your body. And it took me years and years to get to that place. Like a very serious therapy and very serious introspection and understanding the causes of my eating disorder. And then, of course, once you understand the causes, that's only half the battle. Now that you understand, you have to practice every day loving your body.
Yeah.
You have to kind of force feed yourself the right things. You have to make sure you're not working out too much. Like now you got to monitor yourself and practice all of these acts of self-love and self-care to make sure that you're, actually getting to a place where you feel comfortable with your body.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, being a man, it's
different. I can imagine it must be very different. And that's really something I'm very curious about because I guess male ego versus the female ego are kind of different animals. I feel like, what I mean?
Absolutely right.
I don't want to be like, say the wrong thing, but I guess for me with an eating disorder, I guess with body dysmorphia, and maybe if I do still struggle with it, I was very close with my stepbrothers growing up and like what they thought of me and what their, I wanted them to think I was cool. And so I would watch all the same movies as them, and I was always, you know, and they were interested in something, I would take on what they were interested in. And so one day they were writing out a list, and they were writing out a list of this girl that both of them had a crush on. And
wait, both your brothers had a crush on the same girl?
Yeah. And,
oh, wow.
And so, or that they thought, I think they saw something on TV or something like that, where they were like, so they were numbering this girl's body parts. So like she had like a 10 for a face, and then a 5 for boobs, and
yeah, that'll fuck you up at a young age.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, well, do one for me. And
what?
Yeah, and so I asked them to do one for me, and they were like, okay. And so they gave like my face like an 8 or something like that. They gave my like arms like a 6. They gave my like and I was standing there, and they were looking at me,
scrutinizing you in real time.
Yeah, and I was totally like I wanted them to, you know, and I wanted to know what they thought of how I looked, and so I got really upset, and I read it, and I was like crying, and I was just and so my mom found out, and she came, and she's like I heard about what happened. This is awful, Caroline. Your face is at least a 9. I know, she was just like going over the list.
It's
like,
at least an 8.4.
Bullshit. This is bullshit. They totally gave you a wrong score. They were totally unfair.
Her problem was the fact that their score was wrong, not the fact that they basically set you up for life to become insecure about your body and your face.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I guess that was sort of one of the things, and I always kind of like remember like your face is an 8. Your face is an 8. But like, what's wrong? Like an 8 is pretty good. You know, an 8 is great.
First of all, your face is not an 8.
Well, you know what I mean. But you kind of never lose that, you know what I mean? You never lose that, like, you're kind of, somebody is looking at you and applying a number to you.
Yeah, it's beyond fucked up. I mean, I will never lose being in elementary school and getting picked last for tetherball.
Aw.
Or
wait, tetherball, is that the stick with the ball?
No. Tetherball is a single player game. For dodgeball, that's what I meant.
Oh, dodgeball.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had dodgeball in elementary school.
Yes.
Which, by the way, that's fucked up.
No, it's the best game in the world.
Elementary school kids throwing balls at each other as hard as they
I
possibly
love
can.
It's so great. I wish being a kid.
Yeah. Well, maybe you had more fun as a kid than I did. I have fun now. As a kid, it wasn't the most fun.
Really?
Yeah, because I got made fun of all the time. I got picked last for the dodgeball team.
So did I, and that's why you play dodgeball. You just bring it to the court.
Yeah,
you know,
take
that
your aggression
piece of
out.
Shit that calls you names, just hit him in the face with the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's just
yeah.
But.
So I never. And the thing is that at that age, like these things happen, and like we tell kids to like toughen up and whatever. Yeah. But
because, you know, life is really tough. People are going to be throwing balls at your face all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in Hollywood. Especially with Harvey Weinstein's out there. You know what I mean? Especially for girls. Girls need to play dodgeball with 2 balls that look like balls.
Yeah, exactly.
Look like
and throw them at their balls.
Yeah, I know. And then dodge them. Because I think it's a great life lesson for women.
But here's the problem with the toughen up theory, right? Like we have this theory we say that millennials are snowflakes, and like you know, when I was a kid, we handled our business back by the dumpster, and you know, like if you had a problem with someone, you'd go beat them up, and girls would catfight, and you know, now everyone's the pussification of man, and blah blah blah. And the problem with that theory, like, yes, it's true that like you need to have some balls, and you need to handle your business like a man or like a woman or whatever. But the problem, what people don't understand is that when fucked up things happen to you as a kid, it fucks you up for life, right? So now, if somebody made fun of me for, like, somebody doesn't like my body, they say I'm too skinny, I'm too fat, I'm too whatever. Now I'm like, dude, suck a dick. Like, I don't care about your opinion.
Yeah.
Now, if some guy, your stepbrothers, said that your face is an 8 and your boobs are a 6 and your arms are a whatever,
then I'd say, well, Rob, your girlfriend's face is a 4.
Exactly.
So
You'd be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. But when we're kids and that kind of thing happens, the problem with the toughen up theory is that you can toughen up in the moment, but if something messed up happens to you when you're a kid, that will set you down a long and very hard road of overcoming psychological and emotional trauma, because at that age, you believe whatever you're told.
Oh, sure. And, and we all know this, you know what I mean? And I think it's just, the messages you get with your kid, do affect you and stuff. And it's just it's a matter of just like, it's a lie. We know it's a lie. And I think it's just like, we know what the lies are. So we might as well just be honest with what the lies are. You know what I mean? It's just,
we know what the lies are now, but I lived my entire life because of the lies that were told to me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming it on anyone. I'm not sitting here trying to say, woe is me, or, or complain about it. But I know what the lies are now.
Yeah.
I lived my entire life thinking that I was worthless, fat, and not athletic, you know, which is just not true. It took me a long time to to get over that because kids were mean.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that contributed to my eating disorder as well as, having all of that as a kid. But I also kept really quiet about this. Like, it wasn't until my eating disorder video on YouTube, it wasn't until I launched the YouTube channel at all, actually, that I started to tell people that I had an eating disorder. Other than my close friends and family,
Did you get stigmatized with it because you were a man? And usually, people think of eating disorders are associated with women and stuff. Really?
Absolutely.
What was that like? What was your most negative response from somebody?
Well, I actually haven't gotten negative responses to the video. People seem to like the video.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Because the people I feel like who need that message are going to look for it, and I just don't think that there are. I got my first review on one of my videos and stuff, and it was just like, these vapid bitches. And it's like, oh, well, I guess that's how people are going to see things. You know what I mean? On a surface level, they're just going to see these two girls talking like vapid bitches, and they're not even going to listen to what they're saying, you know?
Yeah. I think with men that stigmatizing eating disorders is a huge thing for a few reasons.
Right.
One is just the fact that men have eating disorders more rarely than women.
Sure. But I feel like the pressures are kind of separate but equal. There are really unfair, images of men that are being projected out there for what makes men good looking. That you can't look that way unless you take steroids.
Right.
You can't show that image of a man and not expect men to start taking steroids to look like that.
Right.
It's and then there's images of women. It's you can't show images of that to women and expect these women to not starve themselves to look like that.
Exactly.
And so, everybody kind of has these different issues kind of from these images. And it's important just to know these are airbrushed. These are lies. These are people who spend their life working out. These are people that spend their life eating healthy and on special diets and stuff to look the way they look.
Yeah, and there are also people who, just because you look a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy.
Well, even the Victoria's Secret models, they don't even look like that. They have to go on these insane diets during fashion weeks and stuff like that they're it's so when they're not really working that actively, they don't really maintain that sort of lifestyle.
Right.
And
the question that I always ask is for what? What exactly is the point? We don't...
Sex. Sex is the point. You know what I mean? It's all about sex. I think that...
Okay, so you starve yourself, or you take a bunch of steroids, or you spend your entire life working out or eating a certain diet or trying to look a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say you've achieved the pinnacle of looking your absolute best, or looking quote unquote the absolute best, right?
It's empty.
Let's take a second and say, so what do you get? There's no money in the fitness industry, so you don't get any money.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little money in the modeling industry, except for the top 0.01%, like the Naomi Campbells.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no money for 99% of the girls and, the male fitness models.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. People like you on Instagram, but people don't even fucking know you. Most of the time you have no life because all you do is eat and sleep and work out and then starve yourself. So you're not going out and socializing and, eating burgers and fries and beers and stuff with your friends.
Yeah.
Most of the time, and this is something that we don't talk about, I'm a personal trainer, by the way. So I'm a part of the fitness industry, and I have been for years.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time with these men and women who are, walking around with 10, 8, 6% body fat, and they're in the quote unquote best shape, their sex drive is completely gone. Like for those Victoria's Secret models, 99% of them can't have a baby anymore because they have starved themselves for so long that their fertility is just in the toilet. And for the men, they might be taking testosterone from steroids and stuff, but as soon as they get off of that, they've messed up their bodies to the max. Now their dick doesn't even work.
Yeah.
So it's like yes, eating disorders are a psychological thing that need real cures. And they're very hard to treat, and you have to get to a place where you're ready to be treated. But the question, when I look back on my eating disorder now, and I look back on like the body that I was trying to achieve, which I looked like a ghost. I was emaciated. I was not good looking. Like there's a reason girls didn't want to sleep with me because I looked fucking scary. I asked myself, for what?
Yeah.
Like what is the point? There is no point. There's absolutely no return on that investment, and you're miserable all the time. But of course, as a man, like you can't speak about these things. And that was my thought process for so long, that like this is just a secret. This is something that people don't need to know about. This is just a part of my private life, and some things need to be kept private. And that's just bullshit. I'm so happy that I'm now finally starting to talk about this, because I know a lot of men who have very serious body dysmorphia that has either been diagnosed or is undiagnosed. And, for
really?
those, yeah. And
can you give some examples of like, are these like, because you're a personal trainer, do you work with any like celebrities, or do you work with any, with men that are like, where fitness is like a big part of their
Yeah. I don't train celebrities. I train regular people, but I work all day with men in the fitness industry who have very serious eating disorders.
Really?
And very serious body dysmorphia issues. And not even in the fitness industry. I just have friends who have either dealt with this stuff or are currently dealing with this stuff.
How common do you think it is with men? Like these sort of
It's less common than with women for sure, and I don't know why that is. And it's hard for me to give like a statistic, but
I guess
it's pretty common.
It is pretty common. I mean,
it's just not talked about
as much with men as it is with women.
Oh yeah, of course. Men never talk about this kind of things because we kind of have this idea that men can't have an eating disorder. Like we kind of just think that that's a strictly female phenomenon. And I don't know who came up with that idea, but I'm here to say that it's completely false.
I remember when I was in treatment, the men that would come to the outpatient groups, from the other like surrounding treatment places, and it was always like, I'm a manorexic. They would call themselves manorexic, and it was like, why do you need to make it like masculine to yourself? You know what I mean? It was like almost like they were joking about how they were like, ha 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 ha, I can't eat, I'm starving myself because and stuff. And it's
I've used that term before.
Oh yeah, but it's like it's sort of making light of it, or making it like, like I have testicular cancer or something like that. I have something like that. It's like is making me less of a man, you know? And I always kind of wondered about that. But
yeah, I can tell you that.
But there was a singer from like this emo band who was very popular, and when this like movie, he was in a movie where he played like the love interest, and then when that movie came out, he came out about having an eating disorder.
Which band?
Honestly, it was just like some emo band that I forget the name of. But the lead singer had an eating disorder. He was anorexic, and I remember thinking like he was skinny and that was his look. You know what I mean? He was like in a rock band and stuff, and it was, and like him being like super emaciated and skinny was sort of like the emo band look that he had going for him. And then it turns out he just like his diet was beers and cigarettes, like that. Like he didn't eat anything. Yeah, and I don't know. And I always just kind of felt like, I think that kind of opened my eyes, because I remember like lots of girls had a crush on him, and like girls were like lusting after this guy who had anorexia and stuff. And so it's like, if you see like,
no girl was lusting after me when I had anorexia, I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's true. Like, I mean, there's, I guess, like, but I mean, for like the emo band, boy band look, I guess it was sort of the look. But he was like, but also he was like 30. And he looked young, and him being skinny made him look young,
even younger,
to appeal to like 15-year-old girls and stuff. So it was like also like that kind of thing. I guess. But
yeah, I know. And especially I mean, obviously, when you're in the industry, like you're being interviewed, you're in magazines, you're on TV, like you're in videos, you're like an Instagram celebrity. I think that kind of ups the ante. Like you feel more pressure to look a certain way or to like uphold a certain look because you're kind of in the spotlight. And you know, of course, that can make everything worse. But it's funny hearing you talk about this guy who like. He just kind of seemed skinny, like that just seemed like his look, but then he ended up coming out with an eating disorder. When I talk to someone who currently has an eating disorder, I can smell it from a mile away.
Really?
Like no person who has some kind of body dysmorphia can lie to me for 5 seconds. And I remember that when I was in undergrad and I had worked through my eating disorder, there were 2 girls specifically, I remember both of them very clearly, that I knew were way sicker than I was. Like I had it bad. These girls had it to the point where like they could die.
Yeah.
You know, I remember how skinny and how emaciated they were. And I went and I spoke to both of them. Not to like do an intervention because I knew that never works, but just to see where they were at, you know, and see if I could kind of be a helpful ear to them and make them feel supported in any way. And both of them completely bullshit me. You know, both of them looked me right in the eye and told me that they're perfectly fine, that they're just sick, or, you know, one of them said she had like a thyroid problem or a hormonal issue and that's why she was so skinny. And the other one told me that like she's trying out being a vegan or she's like on a keto diet. And I don't remember what the fuck they said.
What do you think about veganism and eating disorders? I noticed that like a lot of girls who've like had eating disorders and recover from it become vegans. And I wonder like, is this like a nutrition animal rights thing, or are you just, this is your way of having a functioning eating disorder?
Yes, I will tell you, no, let's cut the bullshit. A girl who has an eating disorder, quote unquote, recovers from it and then becomes vegan, still has an eating disorder that is alive and well, my friend.
Really?
Absolutely.
I've noticed that being a really huge trend.
It's a huge trend and I see it all the time. And I used to have qualms about veganism because I thought that being vegan was a gateway into an eating disorder. I thought it's too restrictive.
Well, you have to be super responsible with it. And then also you have to eat a shit ton of food to meet your nutritional goals.
Right.
I guess, or not goals, but nutritional needs.
Right. So I thought that like that level of discipline and being responsible and it's so restrictive with everything you can and can't eat could be kind of a dangerous thing. But now what I've realized is that it's not that veganism is a foray into an eating disorder. It's actually that an eating disorder is a foray into veganism. And this doesn't apply to everyone. There are plenty of vegans who have a very healthy lifestyle and you know, they just love the animals and stuff like that.
We're not, you know, disputing that. We're just
the
trend of women who've had eating disorders and kind of transition into like
Exactly.
Yeah.
The correlation between an eating disorder and veganism, or like a semi-permanent keto diet, or being gluten-free, or, you know, just having any sort of really restrictive diet.
Sure.
It is not because they went through that process, they recovered from it, and now they're just really concerned with like being healthy and fit.
Sure.
They still have a functioning eating disorder. 9 times out of 10 at least. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine.
You know, and people have asked me, so how do you know that you don't still have anorexia, or that you're not, you know, susceptible to binging again, or that your body dysmorphia, like what's the measure, right, of like actually working through that and having really recovered from it? And I think there are 2 things. I think that one is, you know, obviously the way that you look. Like if you have a little extra body fat on you, if you're muscular, if you're fit, if you're athletic, but you're not a stick, you're not 4% body fat, like you're just a normal weight for your body, and people can see that. I think that's one measure. But the other measure that I always use is I eat whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, me too.
I eat cake, I eat potato chips, I eat In-N-Out. Like, I don't eat that stuff all the time because I'm a personal trainer and I don't want to seem like a fool to my clients. But I'm finally at the place in my life where 90% of my diet is clean, good, nutritious, healthy
Yeah.
foods, and 10% of my diet is junk, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
Yeah, the 80-20% I think was like the best advice somebody gave me. As long as 80% of what you're eating is nutritional and healthy, then the other 20% of what you're eating in a day is like
Exactly.
So it's like it's okay to eat a donut as long as you're eating brown rice and veggies for dinner and healthy breakfast and healthy lunch or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's yeah, sometimes I do fall off the wagon, and I order Uber Eats a lot, and I don't really cook for myself and that sort of thing. So I do fall off the wagon a lot, and I do know that so I kind of just judge based on how I'm feeling and stuff. And then also I do naturally crave things. I do naturally crave carrot sticks. It's I
Really?
really want carrot sticks, or I really want a salad right now, and stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's so you can kind of calibrate your body. I think as long as I'm drinking a lot of water and as long as I'm exercising every day, I kind of tend to be healthier when I eat and stuff. So I think as long as I'm doing that, I just sort of put my focus on that. Just drink a lot of water and exercise, and then everything just kind of falls into place from there.
That's good.
But yeah, I guess if I put more thought into that, then I ended up becoming self-destructive, and it does become an obsession, and it does become a thing where it's I'm weighing myself 5 times a day. I'm measuring myself 5 times a day.
That's crazy.
I'm trying on different clothing that this fit, a few years ago, this was a little bit too big on me, and now it's fitting better and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, it does become an obsession. But
yeah, and I think we are in so many ways are training people to develop eating disorders. Are you familiar with MyFitnessPal?
no.
So MyFitnessPal is this app that
Is it psychotic, or is it okay?
What do you mean?
Some fitness diet books and fitness apps and stuff are pretty crazy.
In my opinion, it's psychotic.
Really?
But
Why?
I would probably be skewered for saying this.
No. Please say that then.
So MyFitnessPal is this app, and I'm sure the people who developed the app have good intentions of making people fit and healthy and whatever.
Right.
And helping them live a healthier lifestyle. But on this app, basically, you track everything that you eat. And so if you have a latte from Starbucks and you have a bowl from Chipotle and you have an apple or whatever, you put every single thing into MyFitnessPal and it knows the calories, the carbohydrates, the fats, the proteins. And so at the end of the day, it shows you your total caloric intake, and it shows you everything that you've eaten and what all of the macronutrient breakdown
So
is.
if you have an eating disorder or a history of an eating disorder, you have to stay away from things like that because it's just going to bring you back into it.
Oh, most definitely.
But there are people out there that are... Do you think there are people that are responsible with it, that this is going to help them, just be more conscientious about what they're putting in their body?
Yeah, I'm sure there are people out there who are responsible with it and who are not so at risk for developing an eating disorder because it has a lot to do with emotional issues. But I think that this is a great way for people to develop body dysmorphia.
Oh,
because when you're using this app, you start to become, it's kind of like a game. You start to become obsessed with what you're eating.
Right.
And then that is a segue into weighing yourself. And that's a segue into measuring yourself. And it's a very slippery slope. In general, I think a better way to go is just teaching people balance and teaching them how to love their bodies and, teaching them how to feel.
But what about
confident
things
and
like
secure.
obesity and stuff? Have you ever worked with a client that's been obese, or
I've worked with 3 clients who have been obese.
how do you go about treating that or addressing their issues versus other people's issues?
Well, is your question how did I train them and help them lose weight, or is your question about loving your body and the fat shaming and that whole
kind
thing?
of both, yeah.
Kind of both?
Yeah, just your overall assessment.
Again, I would probably be skewered for saying this, and I hope I don't offend anybody.
No, it's okay.
Look, my view is that if you are seriously overweight, I'm not one of these people who's love your body is your temple. You are going to die.
Yeah.
You're going to have diabetes and die.
Well, that's kind of my thought on the Tess Holliday Cosmopolitan cover and stuff. It's plus size models are going to go away when that woman dies when she's 45,
Yeah,
And
I don't agree with this because you know why?
not plus size, but obese models. Sorry,
Yeah, right.
That's what I meant.
I know plus size models, I mean, if they're obese or they're seriously overweight, that's unhealthy, you know. But
well, did you see the new Playboy Playmate this month is a plus size model? She's gorgeous, like phenomenal body, like just insane.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure she's just a regular woman, right?
Yeah, exactly. She's
so
like
that's great.
Gorgeous face, beautiful body and stuff, but she's like a size like 8 or 10 and stuff. And it's like, I would love for more models to look like that. You know, just like a woman with a beautiful, healthy, athletic body. She looks like she runs marathons. She looks, you know,
that's amazing. And I think it's stupid that she's called plus size.
I know, exactly. But if you ever look at like old photos of, sometimes I just like, I'm shocked when I look at like Christy Turlington or look at Tyra Banks or just like those old models from like the 80s, 90s and stuff. They were so different looking. They were size like 4, 6. I think that was the sample sizing.
0.
Yeah, that was the sample sizing was so different. And so the models look different.
Right.
And it's just, I actually don't find their appearance offensive at all. Or because they're actually, these look like women that eat meals during the day. They don't look like they're starving. They don't look like they're 15.
Right.
They look like women with womanly bodies, and they're wearing clothing that's you know, couture or, you know, lingerie or whatever.
Yeah. So I
don't expect models to be, you know, all shapes and sizes. Like I kind of have a realistic view that models need to be the physical
ideal.
Yeah, ideal and stuff. But at the same time, I really think it's dangerous to make models living hangers.
Of course.
And
so here's my thing to go back to your original question. I have a serious critique of models, and it's not of them specifically. It's kind of the industry where models are looking like living hangers.
Yeah.
Like, I do not condone that whatsoever.
No.
And I wouldn't tell those people that it's all about love your body, live your truth, find your bliss, you look so great. Like, fuck that, because that's not true. And then on the other extreme, I also have a critique of people who, you know, are obese and are starting to develop cardiac problems and diabetes and, you know, things like that. Like, I don't believe that that's, you know, it's right to say to those people, oh, love your body and find your bliss and you're so beautiful. Like, if you're on either side of that extreme, you're not in a good place.
No, exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And I don't want to seem like I'm fat shaming. I think that there's a difference between when somebody is at serious risk of health issues, you know, or like even skinny shaming. Like, we don't have a thing called skinny shaming. You know what I'm saying? When somebody's like anorexic and somebody has serious risk of health issues, that's not someone that we should be praising.
No.
And also, if somebody is obese and they have serious risk of health issues, we shouldn't be praising that either.
Exactly.
So
we should only be praising healthy body types.
Exactly. So what do I do in that situation? Like, with my clients who have been way too skinny or my clients who have been way too overweight, the first thing is, you know, I get them. The first thing is that we have to address the psychological and emotional issues. If I have somebody who is a chronic overeater, and that's how that person got obese, working out with me 5 days a week is not going to take away their chronic overeating.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
If they are coming to me at a place where they've already worked through their emotional issues and now they just need to get the weight off, then I can help them with that.
Yeah.
You know, but if they're working out with me 5 days a week and then they're going home and they're binge eating because, you know, like their feelings, they're stuffing down their feelings and they've got a lot of fucked up things happening at home, that person needs help that unfortunately I can't provide, you know? But the way that I try to motivate people, both who are way, way, way too skinny and also people who are way, way too overweight, is I try to show them that as they get to a better, healthier body weight, they really start to fall more and more in love with themselves.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we don't understand about super, super skinny, like anorexic people. They do not love their bodies.
No.
They are not happy with the way that they look.
No.
So if they're coming to me at a time when they're sort of ready to make some changes, then they start to see, oh, wow, like my butt and my hips are filling out a little bit more. Oh, wow, I have, you know, a little bit of cuts in my arms and my shoulders are a little bit more visible. Like, I'm putting on a little more weight. I'm fitting into jeans a little bit better. Like, this is nice. You know, and with people who are super overweight, they start to see, holy shit, I dropped 2 sizes in 3 months. Like, this is great. I'm getting compliments, you know, and I try to show them that the results can be, a motivation for them. They can start to fall back in love with themselves. But anybody who hates their body and who hasn't worked through some of the issues that got them to that place, working out or being on a different diet is not going to fix it. You know?
Yeah.
There's an emotional and psychological issue that needs to be addressed first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As I'm sure you experienced.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I get a lot of my self-worth from, I guess, guys and dating and stuff. And so if I'm not doing that, I kind of, I don't really know what to do with myself. And I kind of like have issues like caring about myself or like eating healthy and that sort of thing. Like I decided to stop dating for like a year, and I was like,
when was this?
Last year, I guess. And
so are you in the middle of not dating?
Yeah. And so,
Okay.
but I decided to stop dating, and just take, that time. Cause I was a chronic dater. I just always had to have a boyfriend, I think 13 on.
Are you familiar with codependency?
I've heard of it.
Okay. We should talk about that.
Cool. And, and so I guess like I always just sort of like, would sort of like kind of koala onto a guy.
Uh-huh.
And then this guy was sort of my sort of my life force or my,
Sense of worth.
yeah. And so, but I remember being over at a friend's house for Thanksgiving, and she got all dressed up, and her boyfriend was coming over for Thanksgiving too. And then she went out to meet him, and then he was like, "Why are you dressed up? It's Thanksgiving. You're supposed to be in sweatpants." And he just never, he didn't compliment her, and we were like kids, but he didn't compliment her. He didn't say anything nice to her. And I remember thinking like, I could put effort and still make someone unhappy. And I remember noticing that and having that feeling of just like dread of not wanting that to happen to me. And
of not wanting not to be complimented?
Yeah. Or and just like, because I remember thinking like that was kind of when I realized like I could put on all the stops in being perfect, and it can still backfire on me. And so I guess just, I don't know, that always stuck with me, just that moment where it's just like, and I guess that's sort of how I assess sort of some relationships, is that I want to put out all the stops in being like the perfect version of myself. But then there's always that fear that I'm not going to wear sweatpants on Thanksgiving as opposed to dressing up and stuff. And so, and then, so I guess when those times, and so, I mean, in every relationship, not, there's that time that comes, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't get that compliment, even though I tried getting that compliment and stuff. And that I don't know, like it always really affects me the same way, no matter how much I grow or change or how much I age, I always feel that way. And, disappointing a partner and just having that fear of not wanting to disappoint a partner.
So question, but go ahead.
No, go. I was finished.
Okay. So how are you with receiving compliments?
Great. I love compliments.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. I ask because, a lot of the time when people have insecurities around dating and relationships and the way they look and stuff like that, if somebody gives them a compliment, they kind of shrink. Like
Really?
They don't really know how to take it, or they're like, "Oh, like thank you." They kind of become awkward.
Oh, I always just say thank you. Even if I don't think it's true, I always just say thank you. I think it's better to I know
but
that
most of the time if someone compliments you, do you question whether or not it's true?
I don't really think about it.
Okay.
But
so you don't really let the compliment in? Like if a guy tells you that, okay, let's talk about your boyfriends, because you were saying like dating, right? If one of your boyfriends or someone that you're dating says to you, "Oh, Caroline, you look so beautiful today," are you able to hear that and like let it in, or are you kind of like, "Oh, whatever, he's just saying that"?
yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess like I'm always I don't know. I had an ex that called me annoying once, and like in the way that he said that I was annoying, like always just really like
bugged you.
Well, it was violent, and and so I was but it always just really stuck with me, just like him saying that I was annoying, and then I always, and so I guess like but he thought I was like the most beautiful woman in the world for a minute, you know? And so, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, it doesn't, you know, matter, because I'm annoying, you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it doesn't matter what the compliments are, you know what I mean? Cause it's what's, you know, it's going to come down to what's bad about me anyway. So I guess.
But that's kind of a difficult paradigm because a guy can compliment you and love you to the ends of the earth. But if he says one thing that's critical, then to you, it seems like none of that matters. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe a lot of people are like that.
But that's really tough that's really a really tough position to be in then, because, you know, you want to enjoy a relationship. You don't want to be waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, well, this guy's so crazy about me, but I know he's going to say something bad about me or something critical. And then that's it, you know, like that, the whole relationship's down the drain. You know, that's a tough position to be in. So how has it been going, how far are you into your year of non-dating?
It was over last May.
Oh, it's over already.
Yeah. And then,
so you're back to dating.
No, I'm not. I'm still not dating.
Okay.
I really got used to not dating.
Oh.
And then, well, not dating for like me, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, I kind of was just like, every time I would start dating somebody, I'd just be like, I don't want a boyfriend. I don't want a relationship. We're just friends. And you know what I mean? So, and, but so I kind of just, so I got out of, just dating and stuff. And then I just sort of didn't get into the habit of getting back into it. And so is it a conscious decision now to extend your non-dating period? Yes. Okay. How come? I just think that I'm a living nightmare, and that if I
Caroline.
And so I
that's got to be the quote of the year. I just think that I'm a living nightmare. Caroline Georges, everybody, the living nightmare.
And so I think that I just like, I don't know. I just need to like put the sprinklers out on guys when they come towards me, I guess. You know what I mean? Just like it's for their own good.
Oh, God. Come on.
Run! Get away! Just save yourself.
All right. Can we hear some funny stories about how you're a living nightmare then?
Okay.
Tell me.
All right. Which one?
I don't care. Entertain us.
All right.
You've got viewers watching this. I feel like now I've turned into the interviewer.
Maybe I'm not a living nightmare. Maybe that's just a body dysmorphia thing.
You are not a living nightmare. I mean, I don't even know you, and I can tell you that much is true. A living nightmare is probably the boyfriend who used to hit you, or whatever abusive relationship you said you were in. Yeah. That's a fucking living nightmare. You know, I sometimes I go onto his. I don't do this anymore. But when I was really in a dark place, I would go onto his Instagram, and it was just like, you know, he had a lot of money and stuff, and he was like on a boat and like these fucking like, you know, like shorts and stuff, and he was like with these like girls in like bathing suits and stuff, and there's like this actor that looks like him. And so whenever like this like show that the actor stars in, like the promos start coming out and stuff, it was almost like I had to stop driving my car because I would just like see these promos and I would like get upset, you know, and start kind of trigger you.
Yeah, exactly. And so and this poor actor, you know what I mean? Because honestly, like sometimes I think like I hope I never run into this actor because I would just like start like screaming and hitting him and stuff, even though this guy is probably like a wonderful person. You know? And but
you look like my ex.
He
Fuck
looks
you.
so much like him, so similar.
Who's the actor?
I don't want to say, but it was weird because like he and I went to go see a movie, and then the guy was starring as the villain in the movie, and then I was just like with the guy, and I was like looking at the actor and looking at him, and it's like holy shit, and they even like dressed alike, they had the same sort of like vibe and stuff, and I just I don't know, and that was like one of our first dates, and I was thinking like I don't know, and I thought maybe that was sort of like a foreshadowing. But
well, I know that you're not a living nightmare, but I can say that at least I think it's probably better to think that you're a living nightmare than it is to think the way 99% of people think about themselves, which is I'm God's greatest gift to the earth. At least thinking.
Well, I'm that too. No.
Yeah. But. I mean, at least you're, you know, a real human being who can admit that she has flaws and things she wants to work on. I feel like most people that I meet these days, I don't know if it's just about living in Hollywood or whatever, are just like, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and, you know, look at me. And like part of the reason this is sort of tangential, but part of the reason that I really wanted to start this YouTube channel
Yeah.
was not to seem like this dude who like has, you know, used to deal with so many fucked up things, and now look at me, like now look, you know, I'm healthy and fit and charismatic and handsome, and like you can do it too. Like I wanted to document my process of going through fucked up things. Like I made a video on the quarter life crisis that, of course, all millennials are dealing with. And the first thing that I say is, disclaimer, I'm going through a quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like this person who comes on camera and is like, I'm God's great gift to the earth. I have all the answers. I have it figured out. What I want to do is say, I'm having a quarter life crisis because I'm 26 and don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
You're having a quarter life crisis because you're whatever age you are and have been floundering for the last however many years. The only difference between you and me is that I'm here to talk about it, right? Let's actually open up a dialogue about this. So the fact, I mean, I know you're being facetious when you say you're a living nightmare, but the fact that you're willing to discuss things about yourself and make yourself publicly vulnerable and start an open and honest conversation about those things is huge. Because, you know, you're a beautiful, smart girl. You could just as well be like one of these Instagram models who shows the world that she's so perfect and has the most amazing body and, you know, is so beautiful.
There's
and
a lot of money in it, and I've thought about it and stuff. And I tried doing it, and I got some followers and stuff, and like, I don't know. And then I remember like having a shoot with somebody, and then I just told this guy, I was in the car, and I was like, I don't want to go. And I just called him, and I was like, oh, my car broke down. And I hung up the phone, and I never went back. I just never, and that was it. And I just dropped it, and I haven't.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
But the thing is, I do
admire
think
you for that.
The thing is, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, like, no, I don't actually admire myself for that, because it's like there is money in it, and if it's like, and there were people that wanted to work with me for, you know, for free, and
So
I don't know. I guess it's just like if you have an opportunity, and if somebody's offering you an opportunity, and there is an opportunity, and there is a chance to, you know, make money and stuff. Well, I read this article in Forbes about the Instagram models in Los Angeles and how it's like a gold mine. If you're a female in Los Angeles, it's a gold mine. You just have to take pictures of yourself every day and post them.
Yeah, exactly. And for I mean, that's the definition of vapid. You know, for what? Like, the hardest thing in the world is to live authentically.
Yeah. But what isn't vapid?
That's not who you are. Like, there's a reason you didn't want to go to that shoot. There's a reason you're sitting here airing your dirty laundry and talking about very personal things. You know, there's a reason you're comfortable talking about the issues that you've had, the things that you've been through. You know, you're not someone who is going to, and I'm not either, who's going to put on a front, a facade, who's going to try to seem like somebody they're not on Instagram just to make money.
Sure.
You know? So in a sense, you're living authentically. And look, if that's really what you want to do, like, great. People who are doing that and that's their true authentic selves, then sure, go for them. Far be it from me to judge them. But if you're doing something for monetary gain or to try to seem like someone you're not, you know, you're only harming yourself in the end.
I don't know. I guess, what were some facades that you had, do you think, that when you were younger, that you had to like kind of shed in order to recover from having an eating disorder? Because I feel like having an eating disorder is its own, it's not like alcoholism. It's not like drug addiction.
It's its own beast.
It's its own kind of, it's a mental disorder more than an addiction.
Yeah.
And
well, the first facade I had to shake was that I was just completely lying to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I was just bullshitting everyone, saying that it's only because I'm sick.
Yeah.
Even though deep down I was starting to register that this was really a psychological illness.
Yeah.
And then the second facade that I had to shake was kind of while I was recovering from an eating disorder, was trying to seem like manly.
Yeah.
You know, like I kind of upped my alpha, like, because I was trying to compensate for the fact that I had just had a really bad eating disorder. So like now I would be a little bit more douchey to women, and I started sleeping with a lot of girls. And, you know, I certainly never talked about the fact that I had an eating disorder because I wanted to seem like more macho or whatever. And, you know, this whole thing has taught me how to live a lot more authentically and be myself. And, Joe and I were talking about this on the podcast yesterday. Being yourself is very, very difficult. Like we all tell each other, oh, just be yourself, like be yourself and people will like you, be yourself and things will fall into place. But it's an extremely hard process because 50% of the battle is discovering what being yourself actually is. And then the other 50% is being confident enough in that and being happy enough with that you execute it and that you live it. And that is no small feat.
It's like sometimes like I feel like really unattractive. Like I just feel like a Teletubby. Like I just feel like Shrek. I just don't feel like a sexual being. I feel like this, you know what I mean? Like I just like, and so if a guy is interested or something like that, it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like it's just what's going on outside of me shouldn't appeal. You know what I mean? Because of what's going on inside, And so, I've explained that to guys, you know what I mean? And then they're just like, well, just send me a photo, or just like, or no, come on, like, let me see you, like, and that sort of thing, like, just like, and so.
Well, that's creepy.
Yeah, really? No, I mean, they're like trying to get me to, feel good.
Okay.
That's what I always associated it with. Or is that not? Oh my God, is that wrong?
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Okay, this keeps happening to
me.
Yeah,
those guys are not trying to get you to feel good.
Okay, let's break.
This is why you're interviewing your first man on your podcast to clear some things up.
You're not. No, I've had.
Oh, you've had other men.
I've had others.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Ladies, for those of you listening to this podcast, if a guy is asking you to send him nudies, it is not because he's trying to increase your self-esteem.
I mean, if you're dating.
Yeah, if he's your boyfriend and it's like, oh, you want to celebrate how good looking the other person is, yeah, that's fine. But if it's like somebody that you don't know, okay. That's strictly for his pleasure. Sorry to break it to you.
Ugh, God damn it. Okay, all right.
But also, I mean, there's something just so strikingly odd and creepy about instead of coming up to you and asking you out on a date and like, let me treat you properly, his way of getting at you is, will you send me photos? Like that doesn't strike you as disrespectful?
No. Anyways, let's change the subject and move on.
How come?
Because I'm super embarrassed.
Well, no, don't be embarrassed. You didn't do anything wrong.
Well, honestly, I feel like for this, what it read to me was that they wanted to make me feel better about how I looked. And if they just saw a photo of me, then they could tell me what. And I'm starting to see things the way you're seeing them. But
you don't have to be embarrassed about that. Why should you be embarrassed about that?
Because I don't know. I guess just sometimes I just don't think I'm very smart, and I feel really dumb a lot.
Come on,
with
Caroline.
Relationships, and
guys are pigs. Okay, and they do a lot of fucked up things that seem.
But women are bitches, and they do a lot of fucked up things that seem. You know what I mean?
Yes, so it is a two-way street, and I appreciate that you can acknowledge that, and it's kind of like, we were talking about the whole feminism thing yesterday over the phone a little bit, and what the areas in which feminism has been really, really helpful and liberating and wonderful, and then the areas in which it has just totally destroyed relationships between men and women.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry.
Would you ever date a feminist? Like a woman who was like social justice warrior, feminist, like really like out there and outspoken and stuff? Is that something that you could work with? Like as just,
Well, it depends on how she is in the relationship.
Yeah.
Because if that's something that she like just stands up for and believes in and, wants to go out and kind of share her views on that.
Yeah.
Like, but then she's different in the relationship. Like the dynamic of our relationship is loving and friendly and calm and happy, and I can treat her like a lady and she appreciates that I'm a gentleman and that I'm chivalrous and things like that. Then yeah, of course. But if it's the kind of thing where she's like don't hold the door open for me. I can do it myself. They're like, yeah, of course. I know you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's just a show of respect. Or she's like, don't pay for dinner for me. I can do it myself. Yes, of course. I know you can do it yourself, but I want to treat you because I like to make ladies feel special. Like then that would kind of be hard for me to work with, just because the way that I was raised, I was raised to be very deferential and respectful and a gentleman and chivalrous. And, you know, no one in my family, like my mom's a major career woman, you know, no one has ever said to me that women should stay at home and take care of the kids. Not at all.
Yeah.
They've just taught me that, you know, and I also believe that like it's a man's duty to be kind and respectful and protective of a woman, you know? So if the woman that I was dating didn't want to be protected, didn't want to be taken care of, didn't want to be respected, didn't want to be treated like a lady, then she probably wouldn't be a match for me because, you know, those are values that I hold.
That's true. That's a good way of thinking about it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
But if she was capable of being that way in the relationship and then just happened to be super outspoken on the issue, you know, then that's different. I mean, how people are in the world and the things that they stand up for and believe in and stuff is very different from how they are at home.
Right. And it's like, how do you, I mean, I want to be a virtuous person, but how do I do that without being a hypocrite? And it's like, you can't. Like, I'm a hypocrite all the time. You know what I mean? I'm a hypocrite just for doing this podcast.
Why?
Know? Because I don't know. I guess just some of the things that I preach, I don't always do. I mean, I think everybody's like that though. But
that's interesting. So what are some of the things that you preach that you actually, let me put it to you. Let me ask you a different question. So you asked me if I would ever date like a super social justice warrior feminist.
Yeah.
Why do you ask that? Do you consider yourself that way and you think that that's a turnoff to guys?
No, I don't. I mean, I just think that I don't know. I guess I'm just like curious. I think that a lot of women really don't want traditional relationships anymore. There are a lot of women in like of the feminist persuasion that don't want traditional relationships, or maybe that they do and they go after it and realize without realizing it's not actually what they want. And so I do think that like there's, you know, everyone's situation and beliefs are circumstantial, you know, to themselves, you know.
So when you say a lot of people in the feminist movement don't want traditional relationships anymore, what's your opinion of that? Not that it's a judgment. Obviously, I know you'd say people can do whatever the fuck they want, but what's your view on that? Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's a destructive thing?
When I'm kind of looking at the beginning of the feminist movement, you go back to the late 1950s and 1960s and stuff, and you look at the laws that would, you know, keep women in abusive marriages and stuff, and it's like, oh, so they developed feminism so that way, you know, that wouldn't happen, you know, but then the kind of the pendulum swung kind of differently where it's like instead of
to the other extreme.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's like for the longest time, you know, men you know, had the kids. If there was ever a divorce, the children would stay with the man because the man had the money.
And really?
Yeah. That was,
they weren't cared for by the mother?
Well, if there was ever a divorce, the kids went to the dad. And so I think that was a really big issue in the feminist movement because a lot of women were stuck in abusive marriages and couldn't leave without leaving behind their children.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so like the Parent Trap, where like there are those two twins.
Yeah. One went with the mom, one went with the dad.
That was actually like a common trend in divorces, where because the men would be like, well, I can only handle one kid on my own. So how about I take one kid and you take the other kid? And so that actually was a similar situation that happened with my mother, where my mother was raised by my grandmother and my aunt was raised by my grandfather. And my aunt was, I think, 10 when my grandparents divorced. And so it was just, and so my mom always had horrible, you know, abandonment issues, you know, from that because it was because it was her father's choice and he chose the older kid because she was probably easier to handle. And my mom always felt really rejected that her older sister was chosen and she was left behind. And so I guess like when you think about feminism in terms of that, feminism means something very different to my mother. and the way she feels about things than it would to me and my experiences, because I'm of a different generation.
Right, of course. Sorry.
Yeah, no, please continue.
I think that the original ideals of feminism, which were exactly that. They were ideals.
Sure.
Right? They weren't everyday rules to be lived by. They were ideas to be aspired to.
Yeah.
I agree with all of those. Equality of opportunity, making sure that, when women are divorced, they get some kind of compensation, making sure that they have access to their children, getting out of abusive relationships, being empowered in work. I agree with all of that.
I mean,
I think that today's feminism has become something that it wasn't supposed to be.
Sure.
And I have qualms about some aspects of today's feminism, such as the fact that male-female relations now are so beyond fucked up that women just don't even want boyfriends. Like, they don't even want, they're not even thinking about marriage. They're not even thinking about relationships. We've kind of put this idea in their head that, like, you shouldn't be thinking about a relationship or a marriage until you're 35, and all you should focus on is your career because all men are terrible. And it's like, that doesn't help anybody. The purpose of the movement originally was to help women be happier.
Yeah.
And today, it's actually made a lot of women more miserable.
Yeah.
It has helped a lot. It has brought a lot of skeletons out of the closet and done some amazing things. But it's also, as you said, the pendulum has swung really far, and it's done some destructive things too.
Yeah. I mean, because it has been like, for single motherhood, it's like 70% higher chance of living in poverty. Like, it's almost like a guarantee you're going to experience poverty if you're a mother without, a man. And
Yeah,
so,
man.
I mean, and it's, I don't know. And it's like, there's still television shows and movies and stuff coming out, produced and, put out there by, people who might not be affected by single motherhood in that way.
Yeah. And look, if you're a single mom,
I don't know. There's this show that's out where it's like, they always just sort of celebrate single motherhood. And like, single motherhood is this heroic
yeah, there are
thing.
a lot of shows like that.
But it's like, there's so many issues that affect children in terms of single motherhood that I just feel like people just really fucking ignore.
Look,
and
if you're a single mom because something terrible happened,
sure,
you were married,
no one should shame anyone for being a single motherhood, whatever the circumstances are. But I think as far as like responsibility goes, if media wants to be responsible in the images that they're projecting, then I think that they should be responsible in how they're showing things like single motherhood.
Yeah, this isn't even a political statement, because I'm a liberal. So I'm. And
this isn't a political show. This is, I guess socially political in a way, but like
sure.
it's, but single motherhood is an issue, and it's
yeah,
and
dude,
it affects...
single motherhood is not cool. Like, it is not, and I say that this isn't even a political statement because it's just, you just look at any sociological study or any psychological study or any study on, children's development. Single motherhood is not kosher for kids. And it's also not kosher for the mom.
Well,
it's
also,
a fucked up situation.
Predators and stuff they're not looking at households that have a big father figure, a big strong father figure. They're looking at households that have vulnerable single mothers.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason that I come back to this thing of like, I was raised to believe that part of man's purpose on this earth is to protect his family.
Yeah.
And to protect women. And like, if that's a politically incorrect thing to say or whatever, I'm sorry, but I think that the pendulum has swung so far to this extreme of like, women should just protect themselves and they shouldn't be dependent upon anybody else to protect them. And I just ask why. Like that to me, that's just so silly. Like, forever we had this ideal that men were supposed to protect women and we're supposed to do right by their families and we're supposed to get married and like, we're supposed to become civilized and responsible and have a duty to a real thing outside of themselves and their own, tendencies, which usually male tendencies are stupid, irresponsible, and sexually reckless.
But I feel like everyone looks at tradition. It's like fuck tradition. But it's like, actually maybe like fuck the traditions that don't work. You know what I mean? A nuclear family household works. And
what's nuclear family household?
Like 2 parents and a kid, basically, like a nuclear family household. It works. It helps support a family. That's the environment children need to be raised in.
Right.
And I mean, this isn't to say, this podcast, supports, same sex, households as well,
Yeah, of course.
But, it's just, we had our last guest with this guy, and he was talking about sociology and how he's, really against just, he's really about tradition and just not questioning, and just like, let's just go with what's worked. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is some truth to that. There are things that have just consistently always worked. And why, and it seems that is changing that more important than the negatives that come from changing that?
Yeah, look,
like children being raised in vulnerable households.
If there's a system in place that is oppressing people, abusing people, then we should not keep it around just because it's traditional, right? But if there are systems in place that have worked for hundreds and hundreds of years and that have shown to be in the best interest of all parties involved, then there is no reason to reinvent the wheel.
No.
And I think that people are so obsessed with this idea of like coming up with something revolutionary and new and cool and like this is nouveau riche and this is the new age and this is the cutting edge. And it's like, you've just come up with a system that is completely arbitrary and is actually harming the people that it's intended to benefit.
Right.
So I don't see the purpose of a lot of that. But I also think that the male perspective on female issues is heavily discounted. And here's why. Because a lot of men don't know how to speak from a place of being, of putting women's best interest forward. Like, there are a lot of men out there who, they do want to keep around the systems that keep women oppressed and don't pay them equally and, don't give them the same opportunities and stuff in the workplace. But then there are men like me who I really believe I'm able to see all sides of the argument and then come up with the one that I think is most logical and most reasonable and will be most beneficial both to men and to women. And, I can't tell you how many arguments I've gotten in with people who are feminists or social justice warriors or whatever. And it's like a lot of what they're saying, I'm agreeing with. They just won't listen to me because I'm a man.
Yeah.
So they think that immediately I'm a sexual harasser or I want to oppress them or I want to keep arbitrary traditions in place. And like, that's not true. It's just, you actually have to listen to what a person is saying before you can make a judgment of whether or not you think it's correct.
I agree. And I mean, sometimes it's like, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I don't understand why everyone is just so closed off to like just hearing something different than what they've already heard.
Exactly.
And just that resistance is just such a horrifying thing. Cause it's just like, I feel like I can go to a Nazi rally or a KKK meeting and leave the same person, you know what I mean? And I can leave those things not a racist, you know what I mean? And it's like,
it's not going to convert you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what is going on with you that it's like some, like, I don't know, like Milo Yiannopoulos, like some like bullshit person like that, like says like one thing that kind of like sounds kind of scary. And all of a sudden it's like people have these nervous breakdowns. And it's like, what's going on with you that you're like this when somebody like that is talking to you? You know what I mean? And it's just like, do you think that, are you so susceptible to racism? Are you so unsafe of being a racist that you can't hear a racist talk to you?
That's interesting.
And so, yeah, I guess that's
a really great way to put it, is what is going on with you that if somebody says something that's offensive or that you don't agree with, you won't even listen to it because you think somehow it's going to like,
like you're all of a sudden you're going to like, somebody's going to say the magic words over you and you're going to become a racist.
Right.
But I don't think that's how racism works.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, you're right. I think when I was an undergrad, Milo Yiannopoulos came to speak at USC.
Oh, really?
And I think that they wouldn't let him. I think that they banned him. I think like because it's a private university, they and the same with this guy named Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro came to speak at SC. He's like a conservative, like, you know, journalist or whatever. You've met him?
Yeah.
So yeah, Ben Shapiro. I don't agree with probably 70% of what he says. Maybe 30% of what he says I think has some merit.
I think what he says about, you know, families for the most part, I think, well, I mean, honestly, like what he says about like the nuclear family thing with like, I mean, I think he's pretty, he's a very conservative Jewish man. And so, I mean, like he's not about, you know, gay marriages and stuff, but like, I mean, I think overall what he says about families is pretty accurate. Yeah.
I'm not crazy about a lot of what he says. Some of what he says I agree with. But the thing is, when he came to talk at USC, I wanted to go see him.
Right.
Not because I'm a fucking crazy ass Trump Republican, which I shouldn't characterize him that way because he actually hates Trump. But I wanted to go see him to see if I could learn anything.
Right.
Right?
Right. Because you have to know your enemies. Like, I mean, I didn't read the whole thing because I'm not crazy, but I read, like, I did research and I wanted to know more about abuse in Hollywood. And so I read most of Alfred Hitchcock's biography, and starting from like, you know, his career, but like, and he, you know, and it's like, it's interesting. Like I got to know somebody, because he's an abuser. He did abuse, you know what I mean? So it's like, I got to know why and stuff. Am I going to become an abusive, like, you know, tyrannical, you know, piece of shit, fat guy? No, I'm not. I'm not going to turn it into Alfred Hitchcock. You know what I mean? From reading his biography.
It's not so much, it's not even the fear that I will go like become indoctrinated by Ben Shapiro and then I'll start repeating what he says.
You have to know the people that you disagree with though, and you have to know what they're saying in order to argue with them. And if you're not doing that, then you're a fucking idiot and shut the fuck up and stop throwing fucking riots. You know what I mean? Because like all you're doing is hurting people. But
you know what? In addition to knowing your enemy and knowing the things that you're arguing with, you know what's cool to me? What's cool to me is and people like, especially, you know, my super like liberal friends, like super social justice warriors. What's cool to me is being able to say, I went to listen to Ben Shapiro talk. And I disagreed with a lot of what he said. But here are the things that he said that I actually agreed with. It's cool to me to have the intellectual capacity to go see a person that I know I'm not going to agree with a lot of what he says, and to have an open enough mind, not to have my mind necessarily changed, but at least to consider the perspective of another human being. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, Donald Trump, I think he's a piece of shit. I've listened to everything he has to say. I have considered it. I've analyzed it. And I disagree with all of it because I don't think anything that comes out of that fat orange asshole's mouth has any merit. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go around saying that every single person on earth who voted for Donald Trump is a redneck idiot, because that just makes me sound like an ignorant dick. You know? So I think it's cool to be able to listen to perspectives other than your own, especially in the world of politics, and be like, you know what? I don't agree with a lot of this, but I'm humble enough to say that I can have my opinion changed on some things. You know, and like people don't want to do that. If I went to see Ben Shapiro talk at USC, my liberal friends would serve my nutsack on a platter. You know, like they would call me a piece of shit and like a rape apologist and a Trump supporter and all of this stuff. And it's like, guys, come on with the platitudes. Like, you know,
I mean, I had a lot of,
it's just immature.
My experience, I guess, with this is, well, recently, like my last guest was this very Republican man, and he's, you know, very nice person, and I love him a lot and stuff. But I was literally having just like anxiety, like this like full blown anxiety attack that just wouldn't let up for like a full, like I think 2 weeks leading up to doing it.
Why?
Because I was just like, there's going to be a video of me talking to somebody who's very, very conservative and very pro-Trump, like he's a human being. And it's like, I'm not going to be grilling him. I'm not going to be attacking him. I'm not going to be calling him a piece of shit. I'm not going to, you know, be doing those things. I'm just going to be talking to him like he's a person, and talking about the things that he and I have in common. And it was scary. It was actually like a very scary thing. And then it's like, it's over and it's done with and it was fine and stuff. But I mean, I wonder.
You want to know a lesson that I've learned recently that I
Yeah.
didn't know for most of my life?
What?
I grew up being like such a rah-rah Democrat,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I still consider myself a Democrat. I voted for Hillary Clinton, like I voted for Obama, you know, like, but I grew up being a super social justice warrior type.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let me tell you a lesson that I've learned recently that I didn't know for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans are human beings too,
Yeah.
you know? People who disagree with my perspective,
Yeah.
whether that's on sexual issues, political issues, what have you, those are people who are human
Yeah.
beings who, whether I think they're bad, stupid, or crazy,
Sure.
you know, or I don't agree with them,
Yeah.
what determines if they're a bad person is how they act.
Right.
Right?
I mean,
If that person has taken actions that make them a bad person, then I
Yeah.
can call them a bad person.
Sure.
But if that person has a different perspective on some sort of political issue that is not going to matter anyway in the long
Right.
term.
As far as politics go, I mean, I feel like I voted for like the ghost of a murdered gorilla and was fine with that and stuff. But I just think,
Who's the ghost of a murdered gorilla?
oh, Harambe.
Oh,
that?
you
Yeah.
voted for Harambe?
Mhm.
Why?
I just thought, you know, I think that's the kind of leadership this country needs right now.
Oh,
You
yes.
know,
A dead gorilla.
yeah, and I think he had some really good points on, you know, I am a gorilla and I am going to do what I do and stuff. But I thought he really made an excellent point, and I thought it was really unfair how they shot him.
Yeah, it
and
was
stuff.
unfair
That's
that they shot him.
unfortunate. But I think it has a lot to say about this country and the direction it's going into. So yeah, that's kind of my stance on politics for the most part. But because I just think that everybody's a piece of shit. Don't trust anyone. Nobody's going to do that. I mean, Democrats do fucked up shit too, and Republicans do fucked up shit. There's both sides of the aisle are doing things that are unsavory. And I don't know. I mean, like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, I mean, they were pretty like kind of known for being like shady lawyers before they were politicians and stuff. So I
didn't
mean,
know that.
oh yeah. So I mean, it's like everybody's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? I think like in order to even have like a tiny bit of success in politics, you have to be a piece of shit, you know? So it's just like, are they going to be a piece of shit that's going to do good things for the country? Or are they going to be a piece of shit that does bad things for the country? So it's just like, I try not to look at how big of a piece of shit they are. I try and just look at their policies. But again, if we're just going to look at people for virtues and that's how we're going to vote for them, then instead of looking at their policies, then you might as well vote for a murdered gorilla. Sorry. Like, it's just... A murdered gorilla is pure and humble and kind, and that's who I want running the country.
And
so
outside
that's
of
who I'm gonna
politics,
support.
outside of politics, like just in life, is it also your philosophy that everyone's a piece of shit and you should trust no one?
I think I'm a piece of shit, and I think that there are people that have trusted me that shouldn't have. So I mean,
Why do you think you're a piece of shit?
I just think that everybody.
And is that really accurate? Do you really think that?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
so-
I think that everybody has a capacity for evil, you know, and I think that I don't know. I guess it's like an arrogance thing where it's like if I'm around things that are wrong, if I'm straddling it and I'm over it and I'm above it, then it makes me feel good as long as I'm not falling in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess.
But isn't that true? If you're around things that are, as you said, unsavory and you're not partaking in them, then aren't you practicing virtue? I think you are above it. If you see something that you find objectionable and you choose not to participate it, then I think, you know, not that you should go around acting like you're on a high horse, like you're the queen of the world, but I think that, you know, the decisions that we make when we're in situations that are tempting or when we're in situations where we have the potential to do something fucked up are what make us virtuous or not, you know?
Right.
So
I guess there was Anne Rice wrote a book that I really liked, and it was about this hitman or an assassin. He was a psychopath and a sociopath. And so he was going to get killed, and then the angel of death saved his life and said, but you have to use your gift and you have to go. It took place during World War II. There's a family of Jews in Spain and you need to go find this family of Jews and you need to protect them.
To like redeem himself.
Yeah. And so I guess I kind of just always see things like that. Like, I mean, we all have a capacity for evil. So it's like, but how can we use our capacity for evil to do good? You know? And so it's like, if I'm this sociopathic assassin, I can use this gift to kill people and make money, or I can go and I can use my gift to protect a family of Jews and make it so they can survive through the war. So it's you know, I think having a capacity for evil actually isn't a bad thing.
No,
I
it's
think,
not.
Yeah, I think it's actually,
And it's an inevitable thing. But it's, as you say, it's what we do with it.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for
And
coming.
I hope to come on a future episode.
I would love you too. Thank you.
My pleasure.